Hi, this is Jeff from the Ozark Mountains in Missouri, USA. In the last episode, we started looking at a pretty beat up Commodore 64 bread bin. It wasn't packaged well and got pretty banged up during shipment. We took a look at the circuit board and found out it just needed the kernel ROM replaced. In this episode, we're going to take a look at the busted up case and see if there's anything we can do to save it. We'll try out some different ideas and find out what works and maybe what doesn't work so well. So let's dive right in. This is a pretty good example of a typical machine that you're going to get by purchasing it online. It wasn't packed well, and consequently it got damaged in shipping, which was not UPS's fault. It just wasn't shipped well. I'll get you some close-ups here, but okay. Crack here on the keyboard, which is pretty common to have some breaks along the top here where it's the weakest. All the keys feel okay though. And see, this is loose here, so we've got some breakage inside. Now supposedly when I bought this, it did not work. Okay, here you can see the break. This is pretty common on the nice top edge to have some breaks. And then here where this is thinner, this looks okay though. There's some, I'll see if I can get an angle where you can see that. Some burns or something here. It's pretty dirty. Looks okay along this edge. The bottom is okay, just dirty. Here is the serial number. And it's not broken along the back either. Okay, let us do some exploratory surgery. Oh, that post is definitely broken. It's just slipped in there. Side here. I'll flip that back over like so, and to tease this back loose without breaking it more. Okay. Slide the keyboard. Look at the bottom here. You can see this post is broken. See if we can just hold on to that and pull it out. Okay. One's already loose. Yeah, that post in this corner was completely sheared off. Well, it's not as bad as I thought it might have been. You can see we have a broken post in this corner, broken post in the middle back. This one is cracked. Of course, they're always cracked. Front left broken. Front center cracked. Okay, to get a better look at what's up with the keyboard here, I'm going to pull it out. Oh, that didn't sound good. Pull it out of the case. Pull this keyboard frame out and have a gander at it. That looks okay. It's dirty, but we just saw how to clean those. It's just like the one we did on the 64C. Different color keys, but okay. This is the bottom of right side. I'm sorry. See there. Here. So we'll see if we can fix that. This post is cracked. That post isn't too bad. That one's not too bad. That one's sheared off. And of course, this guy's broken. These guys always break. So our poor case is rather beaten up. The bottom's not too bad. That should be a fairly easy fix. All the cracked posts on the top, however, are going to be a little more difficult. Let's start out with giving this poor case a bath. This is my tiny little downstairs bathroom. It's only about 2 meters by 2 meters, but it's big enough for a little computer like a Commodore 64. So I've got the case top here and some rags laid out to help absorb any water, and a bucket full of warm soapy water, just dish soap. Then I'll take the toothbrush and keep dunking it in the water and scrubbing the computer, trying to get in all the slots and the nooks and crannies and the apertures and that type of thing. Now for the bottom side of the case, I left the soap on the top side to help soak in while I'm cleaning the bottom. Now I'm going to take a Mr. Clean Magic Eraser, which is also known as a melamine sponge, and give the case a good scrub with that. Just soak the Magic Eraser in water and then go over those difficult areas. And we'll clean up the bottom cover in just the same way. I'm lucky I have an air compressor in my garage, so I'm going to use that to blow the water off of the covers to help them dry out a little faster. You could also use a hair dryer on a low setting, or fan, that type of thing, to encourage it to dry out faster and get all the water out of the little nooks and crannies like the mounting post. Here is a close-up of the case after its bath. It came out really nice. I was quite surprised how well it cleaned up. It's really sad that this got beaten up so badly in shipment. The cracked area there by that post is the worst overall damage, but otherwise the exterior looks really nice. Even the areas here on the front I thought might have been burn marks cleaned up really well. You can't see them at all. What you see here is a set of replacement mounting posts for the bottom of the case. I cut these out of ABS, and I originally tried to use some DEFCON plastic welder, and I did a test glue, gluing the ABS to itself, and I wasn't really impressed with the results, so then I tried using the Ote plumbing cement. So I did another test on the other end using the Ote multi-purpose plumbing cement, and I found that worked better. This may have been because how I prepared the surfaces, but we'll talk more about that later. This next step might seem a little drastic, but it's really not. I'm going to take the appropriate size drill bit and drill all the way through the bottom of the case where the mounting posts go. Now, one of these was already messed up because somebody used too long of a screw. After drilling the holes through, I'm going to take some pliers and break off what's remaining of those mounting posts. And I'll follow that up with some small side cutters to get as close to the surface as I can. Here's a quick peek at the back of the case, and you can see the holes that we drilled through. This one that's chipped was the one that was damaged from too long a screw. Now I've got a sanding block that has some medium grit sandpaper, which is maybe 120 grit. I'm just going to go over each of these locations. Okay, here's a close-up of the mounting post location. So we took the little divot, drilled it through the case, smoothed off and roughed up the area around it to help the glue to stick. And I'm going to take the acetone and a clean rag. I'm going to wipe down each of the contact surfaces that I roughed up before with some sandpaper. So, and I've got a drill bit here that is a little smaller than the hole I drilled into there, which is the same size as the hole through this plastic. So the idea is that I'll put a little glue on here, poke my drill bit through there, poke the drill bit through the hole, put that down, and hold it for about 15 seconds and then withdraw the drill bit. Pull that glue applicator out of that glue, get some on the end of my screwdriver, apply a thin coat to there, set the screwdriver aside, drill bit through the part, drill bit through there, hold drill bit straight up and down and push down on the standoff. Here we are with our standoffs all glued into place, and this pretty much fixes up the bottom half of the case. Moving to the top of the case now, I'll use some acetone on a rag to clean off the broken post, and then I'll glue that broken piece back with the plumbing glue. So here is the corner of the case where it's real badly cracked. I've scraped up this edge and I'll crack over here, and I'll put some of the plumbing glue here and then push that down flat, and hopefully to get it into the crack without having it seep through to the other side. Now I wanted to add some more support to the broken post on the top cover, and I experimented with putting a piece of thin wall soft aluminum tubing in plastic, and I tried heat setting it and drilling different size holes with epoxy, and I found that setting it in there with heat worked the best. I cut a couple pieces of the tubing, one about 1/2 inch long for that broken center post, and the other is closer to 3/8 for the post on the corner, and then I roughed up the edges with sandpaper and deburred them. I drilled through the center of each post with a 1/8 inch drill bit, which matches the outer diameter of the tubing, and drilled deep enough to match the length of the tubing. To set the aluminum tubing in the plastic post, I put a conical tip of my soldering iron and set the tubing on the soldering iron. After giving the tubing long enough to heat up, I grabbed a hold of it with a pair of pliers to keep it on the tip of the iron, and used the combination of the two tools to guide it down into the hole, and pushed carefully until it was seated just below the surface. And with the center post, it was the exact same procedure, just a little more difficult because the tubing was longer. And we'll just guide it down into the hole and carefully push till the tubing is just below the top surface of the post. The advantage here with this broken post is that it goes down below where it was cracked into 2 pieces, adding a lot of strength. It would help if these screws were a little pointier than they are. That is putting some stress on the post. I see it wanting to crack on this side. Okay, well, this was a disaster. Now, heat staking the aluminum in there did somewhat help. For instance, on this one where it was cracked off here, where you can see this glue line, this is really stiff between these two halves. This area where it was cracked, though, it could not support the threading process. So I think maybe if I had just used the aluminum tubing to reinforce that joint and somehow used some other type of fastening process, that might have worked just fine. So back to the drawing board. Next idea are these little guys. This is a replacement post. It's 3/8 of an inch diameter, which is about 10 millimeters. And the overall height is 1/2 inch, or say 13 millimeters. And it's got a little post in the middle which should drop down in the drilled out hole, which is 1/8 of an inch. And the 3 slots on there are designed to clear the gussets on the post. So now I need to mark the post and cut them off at the right height for this guy to fit. This is about 1/2 inch long, and the castellations are 1/8 inch deep, which makes this about 3/8 of an inch long. What I need to do is cut this post off 3/8 of an inch down. So I'll set my caliper here to 3/8 of an inch, which is 0.375 for those fractionally challenged. And then what I'll do is make a scratch mark around the outside like that. And to make sure that I can see it, I'm first going to color that area with a marker. So now I will rest this jaw on the top here, where there's still a top. And scratch a line. Now I'm going to use a razor saw to cut off the post at the correct level. Excuse the shots of the back of my head. I'll saw a little from each edge, being careful not to damage the visible parts of the case further. And after a few minutes of careful cutting, we get that post off of there. The aluminum tubing in the middle was the most difficult part to cut through. One other thing I'll have to do is use the soldering iron and push the aluminum tubing down in there a little further. No doubt, if you've ever opened up a Commodore 64 bread bin, when you rotate the top up like this, you normally hear a nasty pop sound. What that is this tab trying to come out of that slot. What's happening is, as this case is rotating open or closed, the square edge on this part of the tab is catching the square edge of the socket here, and consequently it would pop and make nasty sounds when you close it, and eventually it'll break the tab off right there, which is the problem that we had. Now, after thinking about this for a while and realizing what caused the problem, here is a close-up shot of the tab, and you can just see here I've taken a jeweler's file and filed a chamfer on this edge right here, and the face of the chamfer is about 1 millimeter wide, and then I also slightly rounded the corners here. This is the part I designed and machined out of that natural ABS plastic to replace the broken tab. It's got a double step on it right here. I'll try to get it up on the edge so you can see the profile. This sets over the lip where the tab is broken off, and this double lip helps position it right in place, and then there's plenty of surface area here for the glue. And I created one that's like this without the steps, that's just a reinforcement piece for the one. Finished getting the post cut down, and I used a straight edge across here like this, resting on the case, marked the level of the post so I could get the post file down to the right area, so I can glue these on top of here now, and I know it's going to be at the right elevation. I've got all my parts cleaned with alcohol. I'm going to use the Defcon epoxy this time. I was thinking about my previous test, and I think that I should not have cleaned the ABS surfaces with acetone first. Acetone is a solvent for ABS, and it does a good job cleaning it, but it also kind of gives it a glazed surface. If you're using a solvent type glue, like regular ABS glue, that's fine because it's just going to soften that surface again. But with epoxy, epoxy has a mechanical bond. It needs kind of a surface to grip into. So I've sanded the surfaces lightly, cleaned them with alcohol, let the alcohol evaporate. And the other thing I did wrong, I was trying to mix small amounts so as not to waste it. And if your mixture is slightly off, with the big amount, it's not a big deal. With the small amount, that's a much larger percentage, and it can cause the epoxy to not set up properly. So I mentioned before that this stuff really stinks, but hopefully that means it works good. First, I'm going to do supports for the ones back here that didn't break already. I just need a nice thin coat on these. Push that on there. And that lip sets right there. So it kind of guides itself right into position. Yes, I'm just going to slather a bunch on the inside there and around here. Another advantage of using the epoxy in this case is because these don't fit really super tight. Oh yeah, look at all that squirted out there. That looks yummy. Here is the center post, all nice and epoxied into place. Looks a bit messy, but this is on the inside where it won't be seen. Now, I think I failed to mention before that these do have a small hole drilled all the way up through. I thought that would help prevent air bubbles from being trapped down in this bottom part. Okay, this is the side with the original post. I'll try to move slowly along here, and the gap is getting a little wider and a little wider. This is kind of hard to tell. You can see here how it lines up on the inside. It is down solidly against the bottom post, and it clears the bottom of the case as you're rotating it around, which is important. You should be able to get a pretty good idea that making a straight stroke across it. I got out my little caliper here. I'll measure the thousandths. Scrap paper. I measured the length of the threads on the case screw, and it's about 3/8 of an inch. And then I put the screw through the bottom of the case and measured the stick out, which was about 0.23 inch. And I got two different size drill bits and put some tape around there set at 0.25 inch or 1/4 of an inch, and I'll drill the larger hole that deep in our new mounting post. Enlarging. Okay, I'm going to hold this. I'm going to partially block the shot. Just go nice and slow. Alright. We'll do the same on this one. Okay. We'll do this one. Get nice and slow. Okay. Here is a shot of our replacement tab. You can see that it sits right on the lip, where the other one broke off, and it sticks out just fine. I rounded the corners here and put a bevel on that bottom edge just like I did the stock tabs. Here is the stiffener glued to the back of that. I used the DevCon plastic welder epoxy on these, and it worked quite well. I repaired post with our drilled out holes. Now let's go ahead and get this keyboard top reassembled. I guess the first thing to do would be to plop our cleaned keyboard in there. It's kind of hard to do one-handed. With screws and plastic, if you rotate it backwards part of a turn, you'll hear it pop and it'll drop down into the existing threads and then start turning clockwise. That way you won't be damaging the threads each time you're putting a screw back in. And this is where it all went wrong. I heard a snap as I was tightening the last screw, and my heart sank, so now I'm trying to check it out and see what happened. Here is the source of the snap. One of the posts to hold the keyboard in place cracked as I was tightening the screw. And the screw wasn't really tight, so it's just that the post was weakened enough that all it took was just a little bit of force. So now I had to come up with a way to fix that was maybe a little more elegant than the previous post repair. So I machined out a sleeve that sets over top of the post, and here I'm cutting in a bit of video of machining those sleeves out. The first one was about 1/2 inch in diameter, and it was a little larger than what it needed to be for this task. So then I went back and made them 3/8 inches in diameter, which, as you can see here, fits a lot nicer. Okay, I got those epoxied on there using the DevCon plastic welder. Then I took a little sanding drum on the Dremel tool and just dressed up those new post sleeves. This wasn't really necessary, but it did make it look a little nicer. Well, hopefully with our freshly repaired top cover and our nifty post sleeves, everything will work out this time. So let's grab the keyboard. And you guessed it, this is where it went horribly wrong again. That top right post cracked. Yeah, I went ahead and put in the rest of the screws to make sure everything else seemed okay. And then I took it back apart to look at the damage once again. I decided to put sleeves on all 4 back posts, but I wound up only having 3 more sleeves and no more stock to make more. So I picked out the 3 worst looking ones and reinforced the 4th with a little extra epoxy. While I was waiting for the epoxy to cure on the 2nd or 3rd top cover fix, I decided to go ahead and mount the board into the bottom cover. So here we have all of our new posts glued into place. One interesting thing I found out after I measured the screw and then the depth of the hole and the thickness of the board and such is that the screws were actually about 1/2 millimeter longer than the total stack-up height of all the components. That meant as you really tightened down the screw, it was putting a lot of extra force on that post, which could have led to all the cracking that seems to be so common on these old bread bins. I originally thought about using a 1/2 millimeter thick washer under the screw on top of the board, but in the end I decided to go ahead and drill through the bottom case, which would help hide the fact that too long a screw was put in at one point in time and dimpled one of the screw holes. And remember, the longer screw goes in the back right corner through the black metal bracket. So after I got all the screws in there, I realized I forgot the top cardboard metallized RF shield, but I did put that in later, and I kind of lucked into the fact that I left enough of a recess or step on top of the standoffs to accommodate everything. Well, hopefully the third time is hopefully the third time is the charm, not the 4th time. sleeved these back three and just put a little epoxy around this one because I didn't have any more material to machine any more sleeves from. Now to start the process of carefully putting the screws in that hold the keyboard to the top cover. I'll start the screw counterclockwise till I feel it drop down in the hole, and then go clockwise. I do the lower left-hand corner first and then the upper right-hand corner, which are the two posts that have the little nubs that center the keyboard. Then I'll put all of them in loosely and tighten them all up one at a time till they're snug. And we just nip up the last couple screws, and amazingly, didn't have any problems this time. Everything worked out just fine. And we have the fixed top cover. So now we'll grab the bottom cover. I did put the metallized cardboard top shield in place, and I secured the copper strap with some painter's tape. You can get the copper foil tape with conductive adhesive from places like Amazon fairly inexpensively, but for now this will work. Now let's put that top cover back on. So I put the top cover into place and connected the keyboard cable and the LED cable, and then I noticed that the retaining ring for the LED had slipped off, so I need to fix that first. Finally, we are now ready to close the lid. So get that ferrite from the LED out of the way and put the top cover back in place, plug the keyboard connector back in, and then hinge the cover down into place. Now we've got the top cover in place. I'm unsticking the foot that fell off from the front. Now we'll go ahead and flip it over. Take a look at the seam along the back. That looks fine. Now we'll put in the 3 screws that hold the front of the case together. And as always, start each screw loosely and then go back and tighten them all up. Snugly, but not overly tight. As you can see, we've got some missing feet. Time to take care of that. After borrowing some feet from another case, I'm going to clean them all up with some alcohol. Then clean up the holes that the feet go into, with alcohol as well. Now I'll use some E6000 glue to glue the feet back on. Just a little dab in each hole. Try not to make a mess. It's kind of stringy. And kind of clean up the mess I made. And take each foot, place it in the hole, and spin it around to spread out the glue. And here we are. A little final cleaning and it's all back together. Just have to wait for the glue on those feet to dry. Well, here is our completed Commodore 64 bread bin. The exterior looks awesome. Aside from the slight remnants of this big crack right here, which are tiny, and if you're not really looking for it, you don't notice it at all. The keyboard feels great. The case is very strong. You can see I've got Shadow Switcher running here up in the background. And I've got one of my old trusty Wico command control joysticks hooked up. Well, fixing this case sure has been challenging. Tried a few things that didn't work, and some things that worked out pretty well. I think the smaller diameter sleeves to fix those posts really works out well, and the repair tabs for the back of the cover also worked out pretty well. I've ordered some new material to make some more of those. If you might be interested in getting a set to fix up your case, just let me know in the comments down below. Now, you'll see I've got Shadow Switcher running in the background again, like I did on the first part of this video, which is quite fitting because I just got this in the mail. Open up, and there's cardboard. No, there's actually the disc and the artwork for Shadow Switcher. Oh, I dropped something on the ground. And a neat little sticker. This is from Dr. Waro, direct from Germany. She got the quick start card. There's another sticker in here. Looks like a coaster. And the disc has a label on it as well as a quick start for the game itself. I think that's pretty neat, being able to buy a disc with everything in it like you would have gotten back in the day. It was only about $10 or $12, I think, shipped to the US from Germany. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up down below. And if you're not already a subscriber, click on that subscribe button down there, and right beside it is one that looks like a bell. Click on that guy too. That way you'll be notified right away when I post a new video. If you have questions or there's something that you would like me to do a video on, just let me know. I'd be glad to help. Well, until next time,